Hello, my name is Kat, and today I'm going to be reviewing and discussing the Divergent movie. So the first thing I want to say is that I loved this movie. To be completely honest, I really didn't have high expectations going into it. I was always kind of unsure about the casting. Like, they didn't match what I had imagined, and I wasn't very familiar with most of these actors, so I wasn't sure if they could accurately portray these characters. And then the trailers were just cut very strangely, and they didn't really give a sense of the story at all. Really, the marketing in general was just kind of excessive in my opinion. Like, they spent a lot of time and money and effort to really hype this movie up, and all the hype had me a little apprehensive that the movie wouldn't live up to it. But it turns out that all of my apprehension was for naught, because the movie is actually pretty great. Shailene was a fantastic Triss, and really the casting in general was fantastic all around. Like, I was so impressed. And I am so angry at the critics who are bashing this movie. It's driving me freaking crazy that everything is compared to Twilight and the Hunger Games, and just come up with something different to say, please. I feel like there is such a prejudice against young adult stuff, especially young adult stuff that is directed at girls. How teenage girls are so shallow and stupid, and, you know, anything that they like is also shallow and stupid, just automatically. That's how it works. It drives me crazy. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. But moving on. I've actually seen Divergent twice now. Earlier in the month, I got to go to Chicago to see an early screening of the movie. Before the movie started, I was actually feeling extremely nervous because I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about the movie. I was still worried that I wasn't gonna like it. But then the movie started and it was good, and it continued to be good, and I just sat there in awe, like, oh my god, the movie's good! It's good the whole way through! It's good! They didn't mess up the ending or spoil the future books or give anyone terrible pirate dreadlocks like another adaptation that shall remain nameless, but you know what I'm talking about. And after the movie was over, Christine and I were just so pumped up, we ran the half-mile back to our hotel. We couldn't get a cab, and we're freezing because it's like 15 degrees out, and we're wearing dresses, and we're carrying all this camera equipment, and then we just start running and yelling, and people probably thought we were crazy, but we thought we were dauntless. And that's actually something else I loved about this movie, is that it gave me the same pumped up feeling that the book did. And I think that's awesome. Now, of course, it wasn't a perfect adaptation. You know, it was really good. Like, on the book to movie scale, I would put it right under Catching Fire. It was good. It was up there. But it wasn't perfect. There were some unnecessary changes and some scenes that I would have liked to see in the movie, and also some scenes that were in the movie that I wasn't a big fan of, but I'll get into the specifics in the spoilery section of this video. For now, I'm just gonna say that I loved this movie. I thought it was a fantastic book-to-movie adaptation and a great movie on its own. And I'm so happy and relieved that it was done well. There are some changes and some things they added and some things they left out, but for the most part, it stays very true to the book. It is definitely a faithful adaptation, and on top of that, you have a fantastic cast and beautiful shots and imagery and a kick-ass soundtrack. It is an excellent movie, and if you haven't seen it yet, then I definitely recommend going to do so. But yeah, that is gonna be it for the non-spoilery part of this video. I'm going to discuss some specifics now, so if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time for you to leave. So go away, run along now, go watch the movie, and then you can come back. But until you see the movie, you should not watch beyond this point. What are you doing? You haven't seen the movie yet and you're still watching. Do you have a problem? Do you like spoilers? Do you like to seek out ruination of your favorite movies and films? Movies and films are the same thing. So the first thing I want to talk about is Shailene as Triss, because she just really blew me away. She was such a good Triss and a good actress in general. I didn't cry during the movie because I stopped myself, like I don't want to lose it in a public theater, but I almost cried multiple times, and that was largely due to Shailene's wonderful acting. She's really good at portraying emotion that elicits an emotional response from the audience. Like, when she was crying, I wanted to cry. I felt for her. The ziplining scene was so beautiful and emotional, and then the scenes kind of involving Al's betrayal were also very emotional and almost induced the tears in me. And don't even get me started on the parents dying, because oh my goodness, that was some good acting there, and the feels were had. Shailene just did great with the emotional scenes, but she also did great with the action fighting scenes, which was what I was more concerned about. Shailene just kind of seems too nice to pull off the badass Triss that we know and love, but she did, and it just worked, and I was very impressed. I was also very impressed with Theo as 4, even though I do still think he's a bit too old to be 4, and also he looked so much older than Shailene. It was a little bit weird at times. Like, they did have good chemistry together, but he also still looked much older than her. I was a bit worried that the romance would be kind of cheesy and cringeworthy, or really aspects of the movie in general would be kind of on the cheesy and cringeworthy side, but it wasn't. I was really pleasantly surprised by the lack of cringeworthy things. The only things I cringed at were the fighting scenes, and not because they were cheesy or bad, but more like a, ooh, ah, oh shit, that looked like it hurt. As for some of the other acting performances, I felt like Janine was great, and Caleb was great, Triss's parents were great, Christina was great. There was a lot of greatness all around. I didn't feel like anyone really did a bad job, but there were some acting performances that didn't particularly impress me. For example, I felt like Al and Will both did a decent job, but they didn't really get enough screen time to really be defined and properly developed. But you know, like I said, overall the acting and the casting was really great. I was really happy with the cast and their performances. I was really happy with the script. I was really happy with the images, like the cinematography, the settings, the costumes, all of the visual things I saw with my eyeballs, I was happy with. I was also really happy with the soundtrack, which was a bit surprising because in general I don't really care about a movie's soundtrack or its score. Like, it doesn't really stand out to me very often, but I really loved the music choices in this movie. So soundtrack, 2 thumbs up. Ellie Goulding, you rocked it. It was just a great movie experience all around. Like, for my eyeballs it was good, for my ears it was good, for my brain it was good, for my feels it was rough in a good way, and I loved it overall. Now let's talk a little bit about the needs improvement section. I do feel like the plot might be a little bit difficult to follow if you haven't read the book. For the most part, I do think they did a good job of like introducing the world to someone not familiar with it, but at the same time, it's a very complex world and there's a lot going on. And I do feel like reading the book first would most definitely enrich the movie experience. But even having read the book, there were still some lingering questions I had about what exactly went down. Like the ending, which for the most part I loved. I thought it was awesome. I really enjoyed the changes because it kept like people who were familiar with the book kind of on the edge of their seat with what's gonna happen, where are they going with this, but it still stayed very true to the book. But with the serums, like when Triss injects Janine, what exactly is happening there? In the book, the Dauntless soldiers are kind of getting their instructions from a computer program that they have 4 running. So shouldn't Janine be getting the same instructions that the Dauntless soldiers are getting, which would be to kill people? But if we go with the movie's explanation that the soldiers are more in a state where they are just very open to suggestion, then why weren't the other soldiers kind of open to suggestion? Like when Triss is yelling at Will and trying to get him to stop before she finally shoots him, like, it's just kind of an inconsistency and I didn't really get it. And then there were a couple of things relating to Triss's fear landscape final exam that I didn't especially like. Mostly I just felt it was too short and it wasn't really clear on what her fears were or how many fears she had. And also I did not like the part with 4 in her fear landscape. In the movie he tries to force himself upon her and she has to physically fight him off. And that is not at all how it goes down in the book. In the book, Triss is not afraid of being sexually assaulted, she is afraid of intimacy, and there's a big difference there. And I personally feel that Triss's fear of intimacy is a really important aspect of her character. And then, you know, there were plenty of little details that they left out, which for the most part I understand. You know, it's a big book, and the movie's already 2.5 hours long, like, you gotta draw the line somewhere. But I did really miss the fact that Uriah was not included, and we didn't really get to know a whole lot of the initiates in the first place. And of course, they want to keep the movie PG-13, but I could have done with some more violence. Nobody gets stabbed in the eye! Peter does not stab Edward in the eye. We don't really have an Edward. I really wish Peter had been more evil. He's just kind of there, making snarky comments, and I feel like he really could have been played up as more of an antagonist, and the movie should have gone there. Like, you never even see that he was one of the guys who attacked Triss with Al that night. You never see that. If he'd been played up as more of an antagonist earlier on during like the initiation and the training parts, then I feel like that would have really increased the stakes for Triss at that time, and also just made the training sequences much more interesting. There were also some scenes that were included but were kind of cut short. Like the scene with Christina hanging off the ledge. It didn't seem like such a big deal because Eric only made her hang there for like 20 seconds, so then he was like, okay, my point's been made. And the iconic Ferris wheel scene was also cut short. I'm just glad they gave the ziplining scene their full attention. That scene was beautiful and awesome and probably my favorite part of the movie. Anyways, that is it. That is all I have for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great night, and I will have another vlog up soon, so I will see you then. Goodbye! These children drive me crazy. Anyways, that is it for this video today, so thank you so much for interrupting me. It's frustrating. I'm frustrated. Frustration. Frustrated. It's not even a word anymore. That until you see the movie, you are forbidden from being here. Leave! Nicely though. I mean, like, thumbs it up first, maybe favorite it, share it with your friends. Now is the time for you to leave, so kindly fuck off. Kindly. In a nice way, you know?